The router blinked like it was struggling to breathe. I was on the floor in my hoodie, trying to reset the damn thing when her laptop chimed behind me. Low volume, just enough to pull my eyes toward the screen. I wasn't looking for anything, but her Spotify was open, and one tab over a shared playlist. It was named For You, Midnight Drives. Not something she ever made for me. I clicked it, half expecting it to be nothing, but the first song hit me like a brick. Nights by Frank Ocean, our late summer track from years ago, except this version had a comment, a heart emoji from someone named R. Then another song, The Less I Know the Better, followed by Sweater Weather. Every track was something we used to play when things felt good, before the silence, before the nights when she stayed an extra hour at the office. But none of these songs had anything to do with us now. They had her initials in the title. Her name. Her scent was still on the couch, the lavender lotion she always applied before bed. But the laptop was saying something else entirely, something I wasn't supposed to see. I sat on the edge of the bed, the playlist kept going. Electric Feel, 505, Motion Sickness. He had reacted to each one, little hearts, comments like this one hits different. You played this the night we. I scrolled down and there it was, a voice note. Her voice, labeled private after Austin. I hovered over it. Didn't press play. I didn't need to hear her say it. I stared at the file like it was breathing, like it might say something without me even clicking it. Behind me she shifted under the sheets, soft breathing, steady rhythm. She always sleeps like a child when she feels safe. I looked over at her, her face turned slightly toward the wall, one hand under the pillow like it always was. I whispered, just close at work, huh? She said that last week, when I asked who texted her at midnight. She laughed, called me dramatic, said, he's harmless, chill. I didn't push, I didn't want to be the paranoid guy, the clingy husband. But that playlist, that voice note, they weren't harmless. They were intention. They were time and thought and planning. 5 years. And somehow, this guy got the version of her that curated music and sent flirty voice notes. All I ever got lately was, can we not talk about this right now? I closed the laptop, quietly. The Wi-Fi started working again. Funny how that was the problem I meant to solve. I lay back down, looked at the ceiling, counted 4 cracks in the plaster above our bed, one of them curved like a question mark. I thought about how you can live in the same room with someone and miss everything. Miss the way they stop saying your name. Miss the way their eyes light up for a phone screen instead of your face. Miss the way the songs change. I turned my face away from her and stared at the clock. 2:17 a.m. Somewhere between too late and too early. And all I could think was, how long had it been going on? The first night we moved in here, we didn't even have curtains up. Just boxes stacked in corners, takeout containers on the kitchen counter, and 2 cheap wine glasses we picked up at a gas station on the drive over. She lit a candle on the floor, some eucalyptus thing, and said, we're officially grown-ups. I remember thinking, if this is grown-up love, I'm good. We built everything from scratch, literally. IKEA nightmares, YouTube assembly videos paused every 2 seconds while I tried to figure out which screw they were using. She'd sit cross-legged, reading the instructions upside down, sipping from her wine glass and pretending to be the foreman. One night I handed her the wrong Allen key and she just laughed and said, you're lucky you're cute. We had this rhythm back then, not perfect, but real. Saturday mornings were ours. Farmer's market, her oat milk lattes, the same old woman selling sourdough that always said, you too again. We weren't flashy, no big gestures, but I never needed them. She used to tuck little notes in my coat pocket before I'd leave for work. Things like, thinking of you, don't forget to eat. One time she drew a heart and wrote, you're my calm. That one stayed in my wallet for a year. When she got promoted, I planned the whole night without her knowing. Called her mom, her sister, booked the rooftop spot she always said felt like a movie set. She wore that navy blue dress, the one that dips low in the back. Said she didn't feel like herself lately, and I told her she looked more like her than ever. She teared up, whispered, "I don't know what I'd do without you." I believed her. Even now, I go back to that night in my head, trying to pinpoint the shift. She kept her eyes on me the whole evening, or maybe I just wanted to believe that. I used to think if you gave enough, if you loved hard enough, it made you safe, covered you like a contract. But I missed it, the cracks. The way her hugs got shorter. How she started sleeping with one leg halfway off the bed. How she stopped finishing our grocery list and started picking up things I didn't eat. I chalked it up to stress, work deadlines, hormones, life. I told myself love was supposed to stretch. That real commitment meant weathering dry spells. But somewhere in there, I stopped being the place she ran to and started being the man she avoided eye contact with over dinner. There was a Sunday morning. We were at the cafe on Grove Street, the one with the chipped mugs and jazz playlists. She was across from me, stirring her coffee, staring out the window. And I remember reaching for her hand, just instinct. She pulled back like she forgot I was there. Said, "Sorry, I'm just tired." And maybe she was. But that was the first time I felt like a guest in my own relationship. Still, I held on. Tighter even. Because love makes you defend the person hurting you, especially when the hurt is quiet. Especially when you can still hear echoes of who they used to be. We had this photo on the fridge. Us in the mountains, her cheeks red from the cold, my arm around her waist. That was only 2 winters ago. She hadn't taken it down. So I kept thinking maybe we're just in a lull, a season. Maybe she just needs space and patience. Maybe I'm the problem. I actually said that out loud once. She was in the bathroom getting ready and I said, "Do you feel like I've changed?" She didn't even look up from the mirror, just said, "Why would you ask that?" I mumbled something about wanting to be better. She kissed my cheek, told me I was overthinking. And I clung to that kiss like it meant everything was fine. It didn't. It just meant she knew how to keep me calm long enough to keep the lie going. I should have seen it. But I was too busy remembering the version of her who whispered, "Forever," into my neck when we slow danced in the kitchen. Too busy hopping she'd come back. She didn't. She just got better at hiding. It didn't hit me all at once. It wasn't a car crash, it was a leak in the ceiling. Quiet, slow. You notice the stain one day, and by the time you realize it's spreading, it's already too late. First thing I remember was the photos. She stopped asking me to take them. Used to be, "Babe, get a picture of me with the sun on my face." Or, "This outfit needs to live on Instagram." But lately she was posting selfies I never took. Better lighting, better angles, more curated. I asked once, "When you take this?" She said, "At work, random moment." But the background wasn't our office. It was somewhere I'd never seen. I brushed it off, people take pictures, whatever. Then it was her laugh. We were brushing our teeth one night and she got a call. Saw the name, smiled, stepped out of the bathroom. She laughed high-pitched, almost musical. I paused. It wasn't hers. Not the one I knew. Hers had a little snort at the end, always caught her off guard. She used to be self-conscious about it until I told her it was my favorite part. Said it made her sound real. But this new laugh, it was polished, practiced, like she'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. When she came back in, I asked, "Who was that?" She said, "Oh, just one of the guys from marketing. We're planning something." That was it. She didn't ask about my day. A week later, I noticed she started sleeping in her robe. We never did that. She used to wear one of my old t-shirts, said it smelled like me. Now it was the robe. Tied tight. She turned away from me in bed, always facing the window. I told myself she was stressed, that her back hurt, that maybe this was just what happens after a few years. But I started keeping track. How many nights she said she was too tired. How often she picked fights about things that didn't matter. Forgotten dishes, mismatched socks, the way I folded towels. It felt like she was auditioning for a version of herself that didn't include me. And I was just background noise. One night I stayed late at work, not because I had to, I just wanted to see if she'd notice. She didn't text, didn't call. I walked in at 10 p.m. The lights were low. She was on the couch in her leggings and hoodie, scrolling on her phone with a glass of wine. Didn't even flinch, just looked up and said, "Hey." "No, where were you?" "No, I missed you." I stood there for a second, then said, "You good?" She smiled like I was a guest. Said, "Yeah, just decompressing." I watched her fingers, how fast they typed after that. She flipped the phone face down on the couch. That was new. She used to leave it charging across the room. 2 days later, she started locking it. Set up Face ID. Changed her passcode. She said it was for work security. But I wasn't stupid. I once knew all her passwords, not because I asked, but because we used to share everything. Now I was locked out of more than her phone. I was locked out of her. She came home late from a client dinner one Thursday. Her hair looked freshly styled, and I swear she had perfume on the back of her neck, right where I used to kiss her goodnight. She didn't smell like her usual scent. This one was sharper, darker, like something you'd wear when you wanted to be remembered. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her undress in the dim light. She caught me looking and said, "What?" I shook my head, said, "Nothing, just long day." She nodded, like that explained everything. Crawled into bed, back turned. I lay there, eyes open, counting the seconds between her breaths. There was a time I could match mine to hers. Not anymore. The distance wasn't just physical, it was in the silence. In the way we no longer filled the spaces between questions. And I started wondering, if she was already gone, why was I still trying to hold her here? Her suitcase was open on the bed, half packed. She was flying to Austin the next morning for some leadership conference. I was folding her charger cable, the white one she always forgot, when the zipper lining snagged my finger. I pulled it back to close it and felt something hard tucked into the inner seam. I thought it might be the edge of her glasses case. But it was a phone. Thin, older model, no case. Off. My stomach dropped, quiet, clean, like the floor just tilted under me. I didn't power it on. I didn't need to. She never mentioned a second phone, ever. She walked in a minute later, towel around her head, scrolling her regular phone. Looked up, smiled, said, "You're a lifesaver. I totally forgot about that cable again." I nodded, tucked the phone back without a word. She kissed my cheek, light, automatic, then went to the mirror, humming something low under her breath. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands resting on my knees. The room smelled like her shampoo, lemongrass, sharp and clean. Everything else felt like static. That night she fell asleep fast, her breath deep and steady before midnight. I lay beside her for an hour, not moving, watching the green light of the smoke detector blink across the ceiling. At 1:12 a.m. I got up. I didn't touch her, didn't say anything, just walked into the other room and opened her work laptop. She had told me she was behind on reports, that the stress was making her forget things, that she needed space and time and a little grace. I believed her. She left her inbox signed in. And for the first time in our relationship, I read her emails. Not the work ones, those were clean, surface level, but the trash folder, the drafts, that's where the truth lived. Subject lines like, "Still thinking about Saturday. Need your voice before I crash. Can't wait until we're in the same city again." Thread after thread, long ones, replies with timestamps that lined up with her late nights, her client calls, her solo weekends. He had a name, Ryan, and a tone too familiar, too easy. Things like, "I saved the shirt you left, still smells like you. Do you think he suspects anything yet?" She replied, "He's sweet, he's just too much in his head, I play it cool. I feel like I'm living two lives. Can't wait to be in your bed again." I didn't cry. I just sat there scrolling. Until I found the pictures. Selfies of them in a hotel room I didn't recognize. Her in the same hoodie she wore around me, his hand on her thigh. And a booking confirmation for a weekend retreat. The one she told me was for personal reflection. Austin wasn't a conference. It was another lie. There was one audio clip, titled Night Before. I didn't play it. I just stared at the progress bar, waiting for it to move. My hands were cold, but my chest burned. Like I'd swallowed something that wouldn't settle. I closed the laptop, wiped the screen like that would erase it. Walked back into the bedroom. She was curled under the duvet, her lips parted slightly, peaceful. And I remember thinking, she looks innocent when she sleeps. She used to whisper in her sleep, little things, my name sometimes. But that night, nothing. No dreams, no words. Just silence. I stood there for a long time, long enough for my legs to ache. I wanted to shake her awake, ask her how long she'd been lying. Ask her if any of it was real. But what would she say? She was always good at denial. At turning the mirror back on me. If I told her I knew, she'd cry, swear it was a mistake. Say things like, "I didn't mean for it to go this far. You've been distant. You never made time for me." Like her betrayal was something I caused. And the worst part, there was still a piece of me, buried under all the wreckage, that wanted to believe she loved me. That maybe this was just a phase, a mistake, a detour. But I knew better. You don't pack a burner phone for a mistake. You don't build playlists, write letters, plan weekends for an accident. I got back into bed without making a sound. She shifted, turned slightly toward me, still deep in sleep. I stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. And by morning, I had already started planning my exit. I didn't say anything that morning. She made coffee, 2 cups like she always did, slid mine across the counter and smiled, said, "You've been quiet lately, everything okay?" I took the mug, nodded, said, "Yeah, just tired." She kissed my shoulder, lingered for half a second too long, then walked off humming. Like everything was fine. Like she hadn't just killed something sacred and left the body in my hands. That was the moment I knew talking wasn't going to fix this. She'd spin it, cry maybe, twist the blame so tight I'd forget where it started. She'd say I invaded her privacy, that I was controlling, that I never made her feel heard. And the worst part, I'd probably start to believe it. So I didn't say a word. I started printing. Late at night, after she fell asleep with her back to me, I'd get up and open her laptop. Screen dimmed, sound off. Every photo, every text, every hotel booking, I printed it all, labeled it, stapled it, built a timeline in my mind, like a lawyer prepping for court. I put everything in a leather folder, the kind you'd bring to an interview or mediation. I named it July Review, professional, clean. There was something about turning her mess into a project that gave me just enough distance to stay calm. I stopped logging into the joint account, moved my crypto to a cold wallet, froze the shared savings for security reasons. Sent her a fake fraud alert email just to make it official. She didn't ask, didn't notice, or maybe she did and didn't want to poke the bear. I left the burner phone where I found it. She never mentioned it. But I could feel her energy shift, a little more polite, a little more attentive. She cooked dinner 3 times that week. Made the pasta she knows I like. Called me babe more than usual. One night she suggested a movie, sat close, pressed her leg against mine like old times. I just watched the screen, didn't move. She looked at me once, searching for something, a crack, a flicker. I gave her nothing. The next day, I called her boss, told him I wanted to surprise her at the next team dinner, asked if he could help coordinate. He said, "Wait, you two are married." I smiled, said, "Strange, right? We filed taxes together, thought she would have mentioned that." There was a pause on his end, then something that sounded like guilt. I thanked him and hung up. She came home late that night, said they had a post-meeting wrap-up. Her makeup was perfect, not smudged from the day, fresh. She smelled different, that darker perfume again. I just said, "Cool, hope it went well." She blinked like she didn't expect me to be so chill. I wasn't chill. I was ready. That weekend, she left her phone on the counter while she showered. A text popped up, from Ryan. It said, "One more month and we'll be free." I took a screenshot. Printed that too. The folder was almost full now, thick with evidence but neat, like a case file. She asked me one night if I was okay, said I felt far away lately. I looked her in the eye and said, "I'm just finding clarity." She said, "Clarity?" I nodded. She frowned, like she didn't know what to do with that. I think she knew something was shifting, but she didn't know how much I already had. She asked if I still loved her. I said I did. Past tense. She didn't ask anything else after that. That's when she started checking her reflection more, adjusting her hair before bed, leaving her phone face up again like she had nothing to hide. But it was too late. She wasn't the only one planning an exit. My birthday was coming up, but I waited for hers, a week before mine. She loved birthdays, always made them a big deal, posted about them like they were national holidays. That morning I got up early, made her favorite breakfast, avocado toast, lemon tea, little honey drizzle on the side, played her favorite playlist while I cooked, even wore the watch she gave me on our 3rd anniversary. She looked surprised when she came out, touched, maybe even hopeful. Said, "You're being so sweet." I smiled, handed her the leather folder. She froze, looked at it like it was ticking. "What's this?" I just said, "Open it." She did. I watched her face shift as she flipped through, pages rustling, breath-catching, the photo of her in the hotel mirror, the text from Ryan, the reservation confirmation, the playlist, the phone records. At the back, a notarized document for financial separation. And a note. "You can keep the apartment. I just want the record collection." She looked up pale. Said, "Are you serious?" I said, "You'll find out soon enough." And then I left. I didn't slam the door. Didn't say goodbye. I just walked out, like it was any other day. She didn't call right away. I think she sat there with that folder in her lap, waiting for it to turn into something else. A threat, maybe. A bluff. Something she could explain away, smooth over with tears or anger or guilt. But silence. Silence makes people panic. She finally texted that night, "We need to talk." I didn't reply. She tried calling twice. I let it ring, then I blocked her number. Not to be cruel, just to be clear. That same night I changed every password, bank accounts, cloud storage, smart home system, even the thermostat app. She used to joke that I was paranoid with digital stuff. Now she understood why. I had already spoken to a lawyer quietly. Months ago, actually. Back when I first started sensing the shift but didn't have the proof. Just a pit in my gut that wouldn't settle. He helped me find the prenup. She signed it 5 years ago without reading the fine print. She was in love back then, said, "Whatever protects you protects me." What she didn't know, what most people don't notice, is that it had a fidelity clause. If either party was found to be unfaithful, the asset split adjusted. Crypto wasn't listed anywhere. It hadn't been a thing when we signed. But it mattered now. And I made sure it counted. The day after her birthday, I removed myself from the lease, transferred utilities to her name. The building manager owed me a favor. I got it all pushed through in under 24 hours. I walked through the apartment one last time. Didn't take much, a couple of boxes, my records, my old journal, the rest I left behind. The bed, the couch, the cutlery we picked out together, all hers now. I left the spare key on the counter, next to the mug that said "Wifey" in gold cursive. She used to drink tea from it every morning. I always hated that mug. 2 days later, she showed up at my office. I work in a quiet building, glass walls, recycled air, polite nods in the hallway. She stood there in reception, arms crossed, sunglasses still on inside. I walked right past her. She whispered, "Please," like we were in a church. I didn't stop. My coworker asked, "Everything okay?" I said, "Just a mistake from the past." She sent an email that night. "You've made your point. Can we be adults about this?" I didn't respond. She sent another, "I'm not even seeing him anymore. It was a mistake." I archived it. Then came the guilt spin. "You're acting like I'm the only one who messed up. You shut me out emotionally for months. Maybe if you'd been more present." She still didn't get it. I didn't leave because she cheated. I left because she made me doubt my own reality for over a year. I left because I stopped recognizing the woman across the dinner table. And because no matter how many times she lied, she always did it with soft eyes and a steady hand. That kind of deception, that's not clumsy, that's calculated. Her lawyer reached out a week later, tried to dispute the prenup clause, said it was vague. Mine sent over the folder. Everything in order, time-stamped, corroborated. It wasn't vague, it was airtight. She'd lose the joint investments, the shared business account, and access to anything post-marriage that wasn't explicitly gifted. The email I got from her after that just said, "Wow, you really don't care, do you?" I stared at the screen for a minute, then hit delete. Care? Of course I cared. I cared enough to gather every piece of her betrayal and lay it out like a puzzle, to make sure there was no confusion, no drama, no screaming match or late-night fight that she could twist into a "we both said things." I didn't leave room for that. I left facts. The next time I saw her was in mediation. She wore a blazer, no jewelry, hair back in a low bun like she wanted to look serious. She tried to hold eye contact during the meeting, tried to look wounded, but her hands shook when she signed the final papers. She didn't cry. Not there. She waited until we were alone in the hallway. Said, "You were always the calm one. I thought that meant you stay." I looked at her and said, "It did, until it didn't." And then I walked away again. Not out of pride, not out of vengeance, but because I'd finally done what I needed to do. She built a world where I was the fool. So I turned the lights on and left her standing in it alone. The text started the next morning. "I just need to talk, please. I know I screwed up. You were my best friend." I read them, didn't reply. She called once, then 5 more times over 2 days, left voicemails like tiny auditions for guilt. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't plan for it to happen. It wasn't even real with him. It was always about how she felt, how she got lost, how I was still the person who knew her best. She said that like it was a compliment. I didn't block her. I just didn't respond. Not because I was playing games, because there was nothing left to say. I'd already had every conversation in my head, and in each one she said all the right things, but the facts never changed. She showed up at my sister's place 3 weeks later. Unannounced, hair messy, sunglasses hiding the damage, said she just wanted closure. My sister listened, then told her gently he's not angry, he's just done. She cried, of course she did, said I was being cold, said it didn't match who I used to be. But she never once said, I'm sorry I lied. She only ever said, I didn't mean to hurt you. As if intention erases impact. She posted a photo a week later, her by a lake captioned healing. I scrolled past. She stopped trying after that, or maybe she just moved the performance somewhere else. A mutual friend reached out and said she was telling people I overreacted, that I bilayed instead of working through it. I didn't defend myself. Because at this point, anyone who needs the story to make me the villain doesn't know me well enough to matter. I cleared out the rest of our old storage unit, found a shoebox labeled us. Inside, ticket stubs, Polaroids, a napkin with my name in her handwriting, hearts drawn in the corners. I looked at it for a while, then put it in the bin. Not out of anger, I just didn't need it anymore. Some nights I still expect her key in the door, reflex, not longing. There's a kind of muscle memory that doesn't go away right away, like reaching for the light switch in a hotel room where it is. The quiet feels different now, not hollow, just still. I started sleeping better. No dreams, no waiting. She told me once that I was too calm, that I made her feel like she was the unstable one, the dramatic one, said I never showed enough emotion. What she meant was, I didn't explode. And that made it harder for her to feel justified. She wanted chaos, noise, something she could point to and say, see, he's the problem. But I never gave her that. Just the folder. And a locked front door. I still have that playlist. Not because it means something now, because it meant too much then. Sometimes when the road is empty and the city's asleep, I'll let it play. Not the whole thing, just a song or two, just enough to remind me how far I've come. It doesn't hurt. It just confirms. Confirms I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't paranoid, that the moments I second-guessed, when I thought maybe I was too sensitive, too insecure, those were the exact moments she was slipping away. She said I was cold when I didn't scream, didn't fight, didn't beg. But silence isn't cold. It's clarity. And clarity doesn't come with yelling. It comes with stillness, with the slow realization that someone you trusted learned how to lie with a straight face and soft eyes. People ask if I miss her. I don't. I miss who I thought she was. That's different. I miss the comfort of believing someone had my back, of thinking I could hand my whole heart to someone and not have it used as leverage. But I don't miss the uncertainty, the code switching, the way she made me question my own memory. She once told me I was her calm, that I made her feel safe. But in the end, she was addicted to chaos, and I was just the quiet she needed to hide inside until the next storm called her name. I didn't change the locks because I was scared she'd come back. I changed them because I knew she might try. There's no bitterness here, no grudge, no war. Just the truth. She broke something that couldn't be fixed, not because of what she did, but because of what she chose to keep doing after. I didn't leave to punish her. I left to protect the part of me she hadn't reached yet. And the best part, she never saw it coming. This is Revenge with Camden. If you've ever been betrayed by the person you trusted most, hit subscribe. You're not alone.